You ever notice how the quiet moments hit harder than the loud ones? That's the truth nobody prepares you for. It's never the argument that tells you she's leaving. It's the calm, the polite replies, the way the air in the room feels thinner, like something slipping through your fingers even though your hand is still open. I didn't understand it for years. Most men don't. And that's the part that cuts the deepest. We sense something shifting, but we can't name it. We feel the temperature dropping, but we call it stress or work, or she's just tired. But here's what no one tells you. When a woman detaches, she does it quietly, emotionally, silently, strategically. Long before you even notice the first crack in the wall, I remember the moment I first learned this. And that's when the air shifted. Not because something dramatic happened, but because nothing did. No fight, no blow-up. Just that strange, almost polite distance that creeps in like a draft under a door you didn't realize was open. She started speaking less. Not cold, just neutral, predictable. You know how dangerous predictable is in a relationship? It's the sound of someone who's no longer invested enough to resist. That's the terrifying part. Men mistake the calm for stability, not realizing it's withdrawal. And if you misread this truth, life hits you hard later. Trust me, there's a moment every man lives through. Maybe you're living it right now when she stops explaining herself. She stops reacting, she stops arguing. And that polite silence becomes a wall you can't climb. This is the moment most men never notice. I didn't either. I used to think arguments meant danger. I thought emotional distance meant peace. But I had it backward the whole time. One night, I walked into the living room. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. Nothing dramatic, nothing unusual, but something in the way she didn't look up, didn't smile, didn't shift her body toward me. It landed like a punch I couldn't see coming. The room felt different all of a sudden. I told myself everything was fine. I told myself I was overthinking. But my body knew before my mind did. My skin felt tight, my chest felt heavy, and it was like the air had weight. And in that moment, something inside me whispered, "This is the beginning." I didn't want to believe it. Most men don't. We cling to the version of her we met, not the version standing in front of us now. Quiet, polite, already halfway out the door. I didn't realize it then, but that calm was the psychological freeze phase, the point where she's already detached emotionally, already grieved the relationship, already accepted the ending, and we're the only ones still fighting for the version of her that doesn't exist anymore. And right when you think it's over, it isn't. Because the silence has layers. First it feels like space, then it feels like distance, then it feels like the beginning of goodbye. But the silence changed before the truth did. I remember standing there, staring at her back, thinking, say something, give me something. But she didn't, and I didn't either. Two people in the same room experiencing completely different moments. If even one part of this felt like your life, you and I are built from the same scars, and that's why you need to hear the rest. Because if you miss what comes next, you'll pay for it in every relationship after. Because this is the quietest breakup in modern dating, and the most lethal. Here's the part men never talk about. Not in locker rooms, not over drinks, not even to their closest friends. When a woman detaches emotionally, you don't feel it all at once. You feel it in micro moments. Small things that stack until you're drowning in a sea you didn't notice rising. I remember waking up one morning, reaching over, and feeling nothing on the other side of the bed except cold sheets. She wasn't mad, she wasn't upset, she just didn't feel the need to be close anymore. And something inside me said, "Don't make a big deal of it." Another voice whispered, "But why does this hurt?" Those were my internal monologue lines, the battle between ego and truth. I tried to ignore it. I told myself she was stressed. I told myself I needed to be patient. I told myself this phase would pass. But it didn't, it deepened. She stopped asking how my day was, stopped laughing at the jokes she used to lean into, stopped resting her hand on my arm when she walked by. It wasn't rejection. That would have been easier. It was disinterest. And that emotional contradiction is brutal. You're still together, but it feels like you're already gone. The silence around us got thicker. You can feel silence on your skin. You really can. It settles on your shoulders, crawls up your neck, makes the room feel smaller than it is. I tried to fix things by doing more, planning more, asking more, trying harder, But the harder I pushed, the further she drifted, and just when I thought the moment was done, it wasn't one night I asked her if everything was okay. Her answer was calm, too calm. "Yeah, I'm fine." The room felt colder. Her voice didn't shake. Her hands didn't fidget. She didn't defend, explain, or react. That's when I realized something devastating. She wasn't pulling away. She was already gone, but I reacted wrong. I got quiet. I got cautious. I started monitoring myself to avoid pushing her further. If you react wrong here, you lose a part of yourself, and I did, piece by piece. There was a quiet second, and everything clicked. Not because she said anything, but because my heart exhaled in a way that felt like surrender. This is what emotional withdrawal looks like, I thought. Not fire, ice. And from that moment on, every move I made felt like walking through snow. Slow, heavy, numb. I didn't want to fight her. I didn't want to lose her. I just wanted to understand what I did wrong. But here's the part that hurts. You can't chase someone who stopped meeting you halfway. You can't repair something one person has already decided to end. You can't warm someone who's emotionally frozen. And that's the battle. Men lose silently, long before the breakup even happens. Let me tell you the truths I learned the hard way. The truths no one teaches us as men. The truths you only understand when you're standing there, staring at the version of her that no longer looks at you with the same eyes. Truth 1. Women detach emotionally long before they detach physically. It's quiet, invisible, almost gentle. She'll still be in the room, still cooking dinner, still asking you if you want anything from the store, but the emotional thread, the one that used to pull the two of you together, has already snapped. And if you don't learn to see this shift, the pattern will follow you into every relationship you touch. Truth 2. Emotional silence is not peace, it's preparation. Women don't stop arguing because they're calm. They stop arguing because they've stopped hoping you'll understand. The silence becomes a bridge she uses to walk herself out of the relationship while you mistake it for quiet stability. This is the delayed tension reveal, the part you notice too late. Truth 3. When she stops explaining herself, she stops investing in the future. That's the moment you feel the emotional cliff under your feet. She doesn't want to fight because fighting requires care. She doesn't want to fix because fixing requires hope. She's already accepted the ending, and you're the only one still trying to rewrite the story. And that's when I felt something inside me turning. Truth 4. Detachment isn't a reaction. It's a decision. It doesn't happen after the breakup talk. It happens weeks, sometimes months before. While you're still trying to figure out why things feel off, she's already grieving the version of the relationship she lost. Women leave emotionally first, physically second. Every time. Truth 5. Men wake up when it's already over. We feel the loss late because we don't process in real time. We store everything behind a door. We think we'll open later, until later becomes too late. And when the weight finally hits us, it hits like a collapsing wall. That's why breakups feel sudden to men, because the emotional clock wasn't ticking on our wrist, it was ticking on hers. But here's what no one tells you. The calm before the breakup is not peace. It's not forgiveness. It's not maturity. It's emotional detachment wearing politeness like armor. And the worst part is, you feel it before you understand it in her eyes, in her tone, in the way her body doesn't lean into yours anymore. It's like standing in a room where the lights are still on, but the power has already been cut. You're just waiting for everything to go dark, and that's the controlled metaphor. A house still lit, but already dead inside. The silence changed before the truth did. I remember sitting in my car one night, replaying every moment from the last few weeks. That was my replay line. Every small shift, every cold reply, every forced smile, it all came rushing back in a way that made my chest tighten, and then it hit me. If I ignore these truths, the cycle will repeat in every relationship I touch. Because this isn't about her. It's about understanding the psychology of emotional withdrawal so you don't walk blindly into it again. Women detach early to protect themselves. Men hold on late because they didn't see the signs. But once you learn the signs, you can't unsee them. You become sharper, more aware, more grounded. And just when you think it's over, it isn't. Because the real revelation comes after the breakup, when you finally realize that losing her wasn't the only danger. Losing yourself in the process was the real threat. And that's why you need the next part. Because what you do after you notice the distance determines the kind of man you become. Here's the truth you carry forward. The truth that becomes armor, not weight. When a woman detaches emotionally, it's not your cue to chase harder, it's your cue to wake up, to breathe, to face the man in the mirror instead of the silence in the room. Exhale. You learn to stay aware without becoming paranoid. You learn to communicate without begging. You learn to lead without forcing. You learn to stay a man even when the emotional ground under you feels unstable. And that's when you shift. Not for her, for you. Because if you don't change now, you stay stuck. Stuck in the same patterns, stuck in the same blind spots, stuck in the same cycle of chasing someone who's already made her decision. Picture yourself standing in that quiet room, finally choosing strength. That's the moment everything turns. You realize that silence doesn't have to break you, distance doesn't have to define you, and emotional withdrawal, hers or anyone else's, doesn't get to dictate your worth. The calm is never just calm, it's a signal, a shift, a warning. And now you see it for what it is. Not a mystery, but a message. And if even one part of this felt like your life, you and I are built from the same scars. Respect yourself enough to evolve. Respect your heart enough to protect it. Respect your future enough to walk forward with clarity. What was the moment you first felt the air change? Because this time, brother, you don't walk into the silence blind.